Hey there, guys. So I'm back with another movie review. Now, I'm going to be reviewing a movie that is about a decade old now. It's a movie called Eden Lake. Now, on my channel, I've been reviewing mostly new releases, mostly like action movies, adventure movies, stuff like that. One thing I haven't done yet is I haven't reviewed a horror movie. And for whatever reason, I felt like reviewing a horror. Now, I came across this movie recently. I had no idea it existed. I just came across it by chance. And I felt I really had to talk about this movie because I've wanted to review a horror movie for a while. Because although I'm not a big fan of horror movies, I'm not a big fan of slashers and stuff like that. You know, there is, I could say, a handful of them which I've enjoyed. Now, this movie, let's just say that the reason why I wanted to review this movie is because this is a movie that I saw as genuinely enigmatic. This is a movie and you could interpret this either way. You can interpret this as being a positive, or you can interpret this as being a negative. This is one of those movies that genuinely does something to you. I'm talking, this movie is fucked up. Now, it's not a particularly gory movie. Now, there is quite a lot of gore in the movie. There is quite a lot of blood. You do see people getting tortured. You do see people getting stabbed. But it's not to the level that I've seen in some other movies. It's certainly not like a Hostel or something like that. It's not that level of gore. It's not just blood porn. Some kind of messed up slasher movie that people get off to. No, this isn't that type of movie. This is a more realistic and more, I'd say, down to earth, gritty slasher, slash horror movie. And it's one of those ones that, like I mentioned earlier, it genuinely does something to you. It has you genuinely questioning your own morality. And that's, for me at least, that was actually one of the positives of this movie. But you could also kind of interpret that as a negative. Watching this movie, I found myself turning into an absolute sociopath. Watching young children, teenagers, and rooting for these teenagers to get brutally murdered. I'm not even kidding. I watched this movie, and I was just on the edge of my seat waiting to see these kids die. Because the things that these teenagers do in this movie, because basically the gist of the story is you got a guy played by Michael Fassbender. Now, most of you know who he is. He's a very popular actor nowadays. At the time when this movie came out, I believe he was just coming onto the scene. He wasn't really that popular. He was more an indie actor at this point. But now, obviously, he's in big blockbusters such as the X-Men movies and the Alien movies and whatnot. But back then, he was just an indie actor, and he plays the lead role in this movie. Him and his girlfriend go on a romantic weekend away to this area. It's like this rural area. Now, one of the things that got me about this movie, and one of the things that I understood right away is if you guys have ever lived in the UK, and if you guys have ever lived in one of the scummiest estates or scummiest communities in the UK where the whole entire community is just are just absolute pieces of shit. And there are areas like that here in the UK. I've lived all over the UK. I've lived in a lot of different cities. I've lived in a lot of different schemes, a lot of different areas, and I can tell you there are certain areas that I wouldn't even drive through. There, there are certain areas that I've lived in where every single person in that community, you just give them a wide berth. And this movie is set in one of those areas, except the problem is the area is very rural. So when something happens, there's never anybody around to witness it, and the whole entire community keeps their mouth shut. And they're just absolute degenerates, absolute scumbags. These characters, and that's one of the things that is genuinely terrifying about this movie is that this kind of thing does happen. And basically, Michael Fassbender he's camping out in the woods with his girlfriend. That he's planning to propose to her, this, that, and the other. She's a primary school teacher, I believe. So they're nice people, they're normal people, and they start getting harassed by a group of youths basically, and this group of youths, starts stealing from them, starts basically, acting all antisocial, playing loud music while they're trying to relax. and shit just hits the fan, and and it turns into a bloodbath. But basically, that actually brings me to a couple of negatives about the movie. Now, this is why I don't like horror movies. This is why I'm not a fan of slasher movies. This movie has all the cliches that horror movies always have. First of all, the main characters are fucking stupid. They are fucking irrational. The things that these characters do in this movie, it's like they deserve whatever they get coming to them. I mean, the characters are so negligent. Like, you park your car in the middle of the woods in a shithole area like this and just leave it and don't even don't even stay by the car and attend it. Going swimming in the water because they're at this big lake, and then by the shore of this big lake you just leave all your stuff including your car keys. I mean, you're asking to get robbed, seriously. Going up to a group of youths, who have got a vicious dog, and they're all carrying fucking knives. Like, seriously, all these kids are walking around with switchblades, and Michael Fassbender just goes up to them and says, "Excuse me, boys, could you turn the music down?" And I'm like, you wouldn't do that in real life. Come on, if you're on your own with your missus, and there's about 6 or 7, antisocial youths who are all tooled up and playing loud music, you're not gonna go up and ask them politely to turn the music down. You're just gonna walk away. And there's even there's even a part in this movie, a scene where basically Michael Fassbender's trying to get his car keys back, and he's going up to these lads and he's asking them nicely, "Listen, just give me my car keys back and I'll go." And then one of the boys tries to stab him, and all of them start trying to jump him, and basically he gets into a scuffle with these boys, and then he manages to disarm one of them, he manages to get the knife off him, and then during this collision, there's an accident, the dog ends up getting hurt, and these boys are all crowding around this dog like, "Oh no, what have you done? You've hurt my dog." And then Michael Fassbender, this is what I mean about horror movies and these stupid fucking cliches and how daft these characters act. He drops the knife and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, it was an accident. If you give me my keys, I can take him to the vet. I can." And I'm just like, in real life, see, if a group of lads attacks you, one of them's got a knife. You manage to get that knife off them, and you managed, and somebody gets or something gets caught in the crossfire and gets hurt. You're not gonna stand there, drop the knife, and start apologizing. No, you're gonna keep that knife, and you're gonna say, "Anybody comes near me, I'm gonna fucking gut you." That's what you're gonna do in that situation. I don't care who you are or how. I know he's supposed to be a nice character. I don't care. Like, you are not gonna put yourself and your girlfriend in danger. All right, and like I said, I've lived in some shithole areas. Okay, I've I've been at knife point. Okay, I've been in situations like that, and I'm telling you right now, you are never gonna you are never gonna show any signs of weakness, because if you do, well, you're gonna get exactly what happens to the main characters in this movie. And this movie is a tragedy. Like, what happens to these characters, you really do feel for them, and that's why I say, this movie did something to me. I watched this movie and it turned me into a psychopath. It turned me into a sociopath. I was watching this movie with murderous intent. I wanted these children to die. Some of these children are younger than 12. All right, some of them are older and more influential, but the younger ones, even though they actually act like children, they're clearly being coerced into this. But I didn't care. I honestly didn't care. I wanted these characters to die brutally, and some of them do, and I enjoyed it. But man, this movie, one of the things that blew me away about this movie, and I get the feeling that the directors and producers of this movie did this for a reason. The ending of the movie pissed me the fuck off, and it made me so fucking angry. I'm not even kidding. It infuriated me, and I think that was the intention. I think that the director wanted to piss people off with the ending of this movie. He wanted to infuriate people. He wanted to rub it in people's face, and he wanted it to shock the audience. And that's what the ending of this movie did. The ending of this movie is genuinely shocking. It really is. It doesn't end as you'd expect. and I have to say, yeah, it was pretty ballsy. So kudos to them for that. It did surprise me the way this movie ended. But this movie, it had, like I said, it had too many problems. It had all the bullshit horror movie cliches that they always have. It had irrational characters, stupid characters, characters who, when they're supposed to be running away, they spend ages and waste all sorts of energy, crawling when really you should just get up and run. Characters who are so easily distracted and easily led, and character and it's just one of them movies that you get the feeling if the characters had just been a little bit smarter and a little bit less retarded, then the whole thing could have been avoided. It's one of them movies. If you'd have just kept your mouth shut and just walked away, you'd have been fine in this situation. Again, if you live in a scumbag area of the UK filled with scumbag people and scumbag children, you get the fuck out of there as soon as stuff starts to happen. As soon as you've become a target, you just leave. You don't hang around and make yourself a target. There's even a scene in this movie where Michael Fassbender walks into somebody's house, like he doesn't even know who this person is, or like what they're like, and he just walks into their house because the door's open. And I'm like, you wouldn't do that in real life, okay? In an area like that, you wouldn't just walk into somebody's house. Don't be ridiculous, man. So this movie had a lot of problems. It wasn't a bad movie, or maybe it was a bad movie. That's the thing. I don't really know how I feel about this movie. The movie was fucked up. Was it fucked up in a good way? I don't even know how that makes sense, but it was a movie that took me by surprise, put it that way, and it certainly did make me think. Usually horror movies like slashers like this, I just sit back and I'm like, yeah, yeah, he's gonna die, whatever, whatever, he's gonna die, yeah. And it's like, who's gonna die and when? What order are they gonna die in? No, this movie wasn't like that at all. This movie was genuinely unpredictable. I mean, there was even a scene where the characters split up, the bad guys, and I'm like, all right, he's gonna die because he's going off on his own, and he doesn't die, surprisingly. Yeah, it's that kind of movie. It was unpredictable, so kudos there. But this movie was fucking mental, man. And again, the cliches annoyed me. The way that the characters behave annoyed me. Um, characters who are just so negligent are hard to root for in these type of movies, but this was an interesting movie. I'd give this movie a 6 out of 10, an average score. If you like horror movies and you like genuinely creepy thrillers like this, or if you're a fan of slashers, you'll probably enjoy this movie. There's a scene where all these boys take turns stabbing a guy. I guess you gore fans will like that. I didn't like that scene personally. I thought that was fucked up, but shit like that in a movie, it can be hard to watch for some people. It's not hard to watch for me because, I mean, it happens. I know it happens, okay? Again, look, it happens, guys. All right, that kind of shit happens in this country all the time. Trust me. So it doesn't really affect me watching it in a movie, But I can imagine people who have never seen anything like that. It would affect them. So yeah, it's that kind of movie. If you like slashers, you'll enjoy this. If you like horror, you probably enjoy this. It's a classic British horror. British horrors tend to be a little bit more realistic than American horrors, from what I've seen. And this is one of them. It's very gritty. So let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching. God bless.